You picked a good day to show up, all right? We've got a lot of fascinating news for you. This is our next to last show in the time slot. Come Tuesday, February 17th, in case you haven't heard, we're moving to 3 to 6 in the afternoon. 3 to 6 on Tuesday, February 17th. And from noon to 3, you're going to enjoy the musical sounds of Michael Monks and Chris Merrill. Both have been with KFI for a while, and they're teaming together, and they're going to bring you a show from noon to 3. All right? And you listen to that, and then 3 to 6, it's me and Deborah. And then coming up after 6, Conway returns to his home base. So the world is back in order. The universe makes sense again, all right? Monks and Merrill, noon to 3. Then me, Deborah, Ray, Eric from 3 to 6. And then Conway and his crew coming up from 6 to 10. All right? Should make everybody happy. That's what we're here to do, is make people happy, not upset people. I don't want to upset anybody. Well, maybe a few people. 1:30, Steve Hilton is coming on. Steve Hilton is a leading candidate for governor. He's a Republican, and he has put together his own organization called Cal Doge. And he and his staff are combing through all the spending that the state does, and he found a whopper. And I'll give you a quick tease because I really want you to hear this. Steve Hilton is saying that there's $370 million in state money that was supposed to go to substance abuse programs, and instead it went to over 500 nonprofits to help gin up the vote for Democrats. Broken up into every ethnicity and every sexual demographic, race demographic, you name it. It's really stunning. And you're probably going to ask, where did the $370 million come from? This was the marijuana tax. All legally sold marijuana is taxed in the state of California. And it looks, if I'm reading this right, we're going to have Steve on, it looks like all the money that they got from the marijuana tax was sent to these organizations to get out the vote for the Democrats. Really. So we'll talk about that coming up. Now, big news today in the LA Times. And, you know, when I get a chance, somebody remind me, maybe next week, because we're too crammed today. The Los Angeles Times has consistently peeled back layer after layer after layer of the fire story in the Palisades, how they fouled up the preparation, Bass to Ghana, the execution, fighting the fire that day, that week, and then the immense cover-up. It looks like Bass has got a full-time staff trying to cover up all the wrongdoing. And they've done an incredible job. And I've said, it's been very, very anywhere from disappointing to infuriating reading the Times over the last few years, and partly because they didn't have a competitor until the last few weeks. But it was just a left-wing propaganda outlet. And then the fire, at least on that subject, the fire, they turned into Pulitzer Prize winners when it comes to the journalism they've produced. Now they have competition, too, the California Post, who is doing a spectacular job. And, that's my dream. If we have two strong newspapers in town that have the budget and the desire to get all the truth out, because that's all I'm looking for. Just tell me the truth. Aileen Chekmidian, who's done a lot of the great writing for the Times on this fire issue, had another one today. And she wrote that, the headline is, Karen Bass directed Palisades Fire damage control. It looks like they have emails to prove this. And she wrote that a day after federal prosecutors announced that the fire was caused by the rekindling of the Lachman Fire, LA City officials were in damage control mode because reporters were deluging the city with questions. And Bass was the ultimate authority on the media strategy. Okay? So this is after we found out that Palisades Fire really was the same fire as the Lachman Fire 7 days early, but the LA Fire Department didn't put it out. And maybe they were chased off the land by the State Parks and Rec Department. But obviously, biggest story in Los Angeles this decade, really, at least. And the ultimate authority on how to handle the inquiries, like I said, Karen Bass. The carefully coordinated approach led by Bass involved this after-action report. And listen to this. There was a spokeshole for the fire department, Captain Erik Scott. He writes in an October 9th email to Bass, to a Bass aide, and then to the interim fire chief, Ronnie Villanueva. Captain Erik Scott wrote, any additional interviews with the fire chief would likely depend on the mayor's guidance. Regarding a press conference, I would be cautious, as it could invite a high volume of challenging questions. How about that? A high volume of challenging questions. And this also would be contingent on the mayor's direction. This is what I tell you about spokesholes. These are professional liars, professional obfuscators. Is that a word? Yeah, I think so. What they do is they deflect, they muck things up, they throw up all kinds of dirt and mud to confuse the issue. Captain Erik Scott is paid by us taxpayers in the city of Los Angeles, and his job should be to tell us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I like the ring of that. That's his job, right? Anybody disagree? You disagree that this spokeshole fire captain, Erik Scott, shouldn't he tell us everything freely? Shouldn't be, like we have to open a bank vault here. Just tell us what happened. We paid for all this. Some people voted for this mess. So what's the truth? And what's the truth now? Not in 6 months, not in a year, not after your phony baloney investigative after-action reports. No, what is the truth? And Erik Scott actually said that Ronnie Villanueva should not have a press conference because reporters are going to ask challenging questions. Challenging questions. Somebody asks a question, you answer it. That's the way it works. The reporters are the conduit, should be the conduit. They used to be years ago. To the citizens, to the taxpayers. They're the ones who go get the information, the truth, out of these public officials. So this was just a massive cover-up, and they put it in writing on what the rules of the cover-up were going to be. Now, Bass, of course, has been denying that Time story from last week that she directed changes, watered down, rewrote, covered up the after-action report. And she's trying to deny it, but she's never given us the name. Nobody's given us the name of, well, if you didn't do it, who would it be? And as an example, fire department officials removed language from the failures section. They actually had in the original fire department after-action report, they renamed the failure section. They called them primary challenges. Everything's a challenge. A huge, deadly, destructive screw-up, that's a challenge. You got dozens of reporters wanting to know what happened. Why did it happen? Oh, those questions are challenging. So we're not going to answer them. And they actually keep trying to get away with this. They keep trying to get away with not telling us what happened, even though most of us now have a pretty good idea. It's just fascinating behavior. Isn't it amazing how this is like psychotic? I mean, somebody tell Bass, it's like, we know what's going on here. We're going to beat the truth out of these people. And why am I working all day so somebody like Erik Scott can lie to me and withhold information? Why are you working all day so Erik Scott could set up some kind of barrier between you and finding out how your money was spent not putting out a fire? Who the hell is he? Who the hell is Karen Bass? We pay her. She had a job to do. She abandoned the job. People suffer horribly. And now they're working on plans on how to handle the challenging questions by not holding press conferences. This is so crazy.